What's behind the mask? You see, a lot of people realize and understand that they've learned and come out of narcissism and they've seen the narcissistic abuse. They've seen that mask drop. What's actually behind that? I want to talk to you today about 4 different things that are actually behind that mask. 4 different people that are behind that mask. We're going through a book recently that's been called The Narcissist in Your Life by Julie Hall. And in this book, it talks about the 4 people that are behind the mask: the bully, the coward, the liar, and the fraud. You see, every narcissist has a mask. Every narcissist has an image that they want to project to the outside world, an image that they want to appear as being perfect or being right or whatever it might be. But that image is very key because it's what they want to project. If they're not going to be able to project it, then you're going to see the mask fall. You're going to see the mask slip. Oftentimes you see this in quick moments where there's like a moment of clarity, or there's a moment of maybe they're drunk or high or something like that, and they start saying stuff that's like incredibly mean or incredibly like truthful, and you start to realize like, hey, what's coming out of their mouth right now is actually what's behind the mask. Either they're vulnerable for a moment or they're excessively mean. You start to see like, hey, the nice person they've said that they are is actually hidden, and it's hiding what's underneath. So as we want to take a look at this, I want to read just the little intro, and then we'll talk about each one. Okay? So the book says it's not nice to call names. When it comes to people with NPD, calling them out is a matter of survival for those dealing with their abuse, as well as those who don't understand the extreme harm that they do. All narcissists wear masks or false persona, and if you stripped away the mask, you'd find vulnerability that would be pitiable if it weren't so petty and vicious. But chances are you won't ever remove the narcissist mask, because he or she defends it at all costs with full arsenal of preemptive, controlling, combative tactics. The narcissist is in essence an emotionally primitive child with an adult savvy for manipulating and exploiting. So let's dive in. First off is the bully. Narcissists are classic bullies. They bluster, ambush, attack without cause, and they prey on the most vulnerable. Usually they have those who love and depend on them, namely their partner and children, who as a result carry lasting trauma. Narcissists often use bully-susceptible friends, neighbors, employees, and underlings in their path, such as waiters and clerks. Exploiting their power over others, they feeds the need to feel superior, and their lack of emotional empathy and sense of entitlement give them free range to abuse without troubling hindrance of a conscience. Now, I know this resonates with a lot of you out there, that your narcissist was a bully. They ran over you with everything that was going on. You'd set a boundary, and they just blow through that boundary and be like, it's not that big a deal. Like, you're just stupid for having that. You're way too sensitive. And they gaslight and manipulate. Because narcissists at the core a lot of times are bullies. They would rather bully someone else than they would be vulnerable, than they would be honest. They'd rather put that on someone else than they would actually acknowledge that's who they are. And that's what they're struggling with. So you'll see a lot of times that they'll bully the weak. They'll bully the people that are vulnerable or naive or that are willing to put up with that. A lot of times people ask, like, why does it seem like I'm always going after narcissists? Like, why do narcissists always pick me? Well, sometimes it's because of, like, the vibe that you're putting out. Sometimes it's because of how you're conducting yourself. Sometimes it's how you set boundaries. Sometimes it's how you follow through. Sometimes it's the standards you have. But ultimately, it comes down to it is the narcissist is looking for someone that they can break or make to be a person that is supply. Basically, a person that is a servant to them. If they can find someone who's willing to put up with their abuse, then they'll keep doing it over and over and over again. It's like the bully in the schoolyard that's going to keep beating up the person because they're not standing up to them, because they're not showing them that they have that self-worth, so they're going to keep projecting that onto them and keep taking that every single time. Narcissists are bullies. Number 2 that it talks about is the coward. Narcissists are cowards. Says here, narcissists are fundamentally terrified of themselves and anyone who might see through their masks. Their driving motivation is to shield themselves from the threatening emotions that trigger their buried sense of worthlessness or narcissistic injury. They avoid self-reflection, refuse accountability, and rationalize their own abusive treatment of others. Often they strike and run, initiating surprise attacks and retreating before being confronted with the consequences of their rage. Narcissists also may behave passive-aggressively, cloaking their rage in self-pitying performance meant to induce guilt and blame. Whatever hurtful tactics they use, narcissists rarely, if ever, take responsibility for what they say and do. Instead, they deny their abuse and project it onto others. More than often, those they have abused further exacerbating the harm that they do. That's a lot. Like, that is packed in there. Narcissists are cowards. They're terrified of who they are and the idea that they buried that sense of worthlessness. It's the idea of like compartmentalization. Like, I'm going to take that, like the feeling of worthlessness, the feeling that I have of myself, and I'm going to box it up and I'm going to hide it. And then the thing is, I'm going to guard it and I'm going to defend it, and I'm not going to let anybody get near it. I'm not going to let anybody get close to what I'm doing, to what I'm thinking, to what I'm feeling. The narcissist is a coward, and they don't want to be vulnerable to be able to show their emotions. The other day we were in counseling together, and one of the things that the therapist was kind of like walking through and like talking us through is he picked up a box of tissues, and he said, like, this is like the box that you have of like all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the things that's going on. He's like, you might not be ready to share all those things, or it might not feel safe to share all those things, but you first need to acknowledge that that box is there. And then he turned to Kayla and he was like, does that help you understand that that's actually there versus not having a clue? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, part of the thing that I need to do, like as the narcissist, is I need to acknowledge that it's there, and I need to be able to say, hey, this is here. Like, I'm not ready to share everything. I'm not ready to be, 100% vulnerable in every single aspect. I'm working on that piece by piece. But be able to say, like, hey, this is here, and this is something I'm struggling with. He said just the acknowledgement of it is a helpful progression versus actually like saying, oh, that doesn't exist, or oh, I'm fine, or oh, I'm not struggling, like everything's great. Instead, being able to acknowledge, hey, this is here, and this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm trying to share. This is what I'm trying to show. But otherwise, it's very cowardly just to hide it and just to move on. And that's what I work on, like every single day. So every single day, I'm working on myself, like journaling, stacking, working through the warrior stuff, trying to make sure that I'm aligning myself in the right headspace, that I'm aligning my behaviors and my actions to be who I want to be able to live intentional, to be able to live in congruence of who I need to be and who I want to be. Been in therapy now for over 15 months with going every single week, and it's been absolutely life-changing. But the thing is, I had to want it. I had to work past my own thoughts, my own lies, my own fears to be able to say, hey, this is something that I want. Is there days that it's hard? Absolutely. Is there days I don't want to go? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I have to want it. If you're a narcissist or toxic person out there doesn't want it and is not willing to get off their butt and actually go to therapy and do the work to change, they don't care. And all they are is just the liar, which is the third one. Okay? The liar. Narcissists are the worst kind of liars. Those who lie to themselves and demand that others support their self-deceptions. They continuously attempt to control others' perceptions of them. And when they can't, they resort to nasty and often violent reprisal. The narcissist may cast herself as a highly principled person, but in reality she is only concerned with her own needs and is too vulnerable and rigid-minded to face life's complex realities, especially those that threaten her elaborate defenses. She may talk a good game, but when it comes to facts and truth, she deflects, dismisses, stonewalls, and blames others. The narcissist may, for example, rage at her son for getting an A minus instead of an A. Because she feels threatened by her son's academic success, she is angry about a fight she had with her spouse, or is she projecting a self-centered expectation of perfection? Once again, we've talked about this a lot on this channel, that narcissists are liars, and the lies that they have, the lies that they give to other people, the lies that they're lying to themselves, like ultimately there's so many different lies that come into that false persona that they're putting out there. If you hadn't had a chance, go back and watch the video, The Lies That I Believe. And so that's me talking about my journey through Warrior and learning about the lies that I had in my life, even going in depth on them on each individual video. All right, number 4, the fraud. People with NPD struggle with a fundamental imposter syndrome, hiding their underlying insecurity behind arrogant privilege. They exaggerate, brag, and made unearned credit to bolster their self-esteem and may go to great lengths to create appearances of being caring and noble while mistreating those closest to them. They have superficial relationships and are incapable of authentic intimacy or selfless giving. They pretend at love, parenting, friendships, and any other important relationships in their life. If they're idolizing you or attempting to win your admiration, they may mimic exemplary behaviors. But their motives are self-centered, and their idealization is a projection that will be followed by devaluation when they become bored or disappointed. The narcissists are frauds. And a lot of times they keep that mask so clear. They keep that mask focused on making sure that no one can see and no one can understand who they actually are. They hide it. They bury it because they don't want to show people who they actually are. So when you're looking at the narcissist, maybe you're seeing, as the mask drops, one of the four people: the bully, the coward, the liar, or the fraud.